James O'Malley Kumar, the brother of Grace, who of course is one of the victims, joins me now. Can I start by saying the dignity that you and your mother have displayed has been absolutely exemplary, and you have enormous credit, and how on earth you're coping. You have my sincere condolences. But James, if I may call you that, how do you react to the news that it would appear the Attorney General will review the sentencing?
I mean, I think that is exactly what needs to be done. Initially, the CPS never discussed they were going for manslaughter, and they never asked our opinion. And obviously, our family, as the O'Malley Kumars, the Webber family, and the Coates family, all wanted him to be tried for murder. We are convinced, after watching the CCTV timeline in court, he was okay on the day. It's not like he was walking around knots with his trousers around his ankles. And we think that the job of the psychiatrist has been them fitting his diagnosis to the events that happened on 13th of June. And we're not convinced that during those 2 minutes that he was attacking Grace, Barnaby and Ian combined, that he was suffering from acute paranoid schizophrenia. I mean, at the end of the day, anyone can say there's been voices in their head, and no one can tell you that's wrong, because at the end of the day, that can't be proven or disproven. I think at the end of the day, he's a dangerous man, and society needs to be kept safe from this man, and he can't be roaming the streets. At the end, right now, his manslaughter, his plea that was accepted for manslaughter has led to a hospital order. And if one day he does get out, he's only just going to be a massive threat to society.
You and the other families have been let down by just about every agency possible: the CPS, the NHS, Nottinghamshire Police, the Health Service, in mental support units. If we come back to the CPS, can you clarify something, James? It was reported that they did consult with the families about moving to a manslaughter charge. Can you give us any background on that?
Well, the CPS had never discussed that with us, that they were going for manslaughter, and they never asked for our opinion, which is what has us furious as a family. We had seen the CCTV timeline, and he was completely okay on the day.
Yeah.
As I said, he wasn't walking around knots with his trousers around his
No.
ankles. He was acting in a completely stable manner.
Had your parents been consulted about a manslaughter as opposed to a murder charge, what do you imagine their reaction would have been, James?
Well, for all of us, it was very difficult to accept. We knew that this would result in a hospital order at the end of the day. My dad he's been a forensic medical examiner for a number of years.
Yes.
Both my parents also doctors, and they had a lot of questions about this mental health that we kind of knew from the start the defense were going to try and use to get this plea accepted for manslaughter on the basis of diminished responsibility. And it was very hard to accept because, again, we still don't think that to this day he was suffering from acute schizophrenia during the time of the attacks.
James, your parents' lives will never be the same. Your life will never be the same. And I was greatly moved in an interview in which I saw you and how much your sister meant to you. But people talk about closure. You will never, ever, ever, of course, forget this. But what will it take to bring some form of partial closure to you and your parents, do you imagine, James?
Well, I mean, now that we're never ever going to get Grace back, all we can want is justice for her. And that's what she deserves. And it's been so far from how this process has been so far. And I think she needs justice. We've seen yesterday the speeches Emma, James, Ian's son, and my dad gave outside court, and it's going all over the media that justice has not been served. And now that in the absence of all three of them, of Grace, Barnaby, and Ian, we need justice because this man is a dangerous person, and he needs to get the punishment, and he needs to be in some way
And
deterred from ever doing this again and stopped.
And why would it have been important to hear conviction for the word murder as opposed to manslaughter?
First of all, it would have meant he'd had a prison charge, and would have had as a family, as all three families, we would have liked this man to have had life imprisonment.
Yeah.
First of all, I think the whole thing's been very contradictory, as the psychiatrist, the so-called expert psychiatrist, which I have no doubt they are, have said that he has drug resistant schizophrenia, but they still want to try and treat him. So I mean, in my point of view, I don't understand why they're putting him in a mental hospital and trying to treat him for what they've claimed is drug resistant schizophrenia.
Last minute or so together, James, and thank you for all your candour on this. The Prime Minister yesterday was asked but refused to commit to a public inquiry. I imagine that's something that you and the other families involved would welcome?
Of course, I mean, as I said, we do not think justice has been served, and we want investigations to carry on because we have been let down by the CPS, the National Health Service, and also the police. And as Emma said, the Assistant Chief Constable, Rob Griffin, he has blood on his hands. You know, he told us they'd done everything they could. And then within 24 hours said they could have done a lot more. There was a warrant for this man for 9 months, and it's a complete failing of the police that was still on the streets in June. Because I think he would have been put in front of a magistrate and put back into the mental health system. And that could have possibly meant he was not roaming the streets on June the 13th.
Yes.
And Grace could have still been here.
Has there been any contact from senior government, such as the Justice Secretary or anyone else, James?
Not as of yet,
Not
but
as of yet.
I believe and I'm sure that there will be soon enough.
Lastly, what keeps you and your mum and dad going? What sustains you through this?
Well, Mum and Dad have always said they've lived for their kids, and all of our family holidays, like when I have time off from school, they're always spent around, you know, taking us playing sport, driving us up and down the country, because both me and Grace played hockey for England, so
Right,
we were constantly in other parts of Europe, and they'd
right.
always plan themselves around us, and they've been such good parents to both of us, and now they just say that I'm their sole focus, so
Yeah.
I'm hoping to do them proud and be a credit to my parents and do my sister proud ultimately.
Well, you've done them proud this morning, the way you've conducted yourself with this interview in the most trying circumstances. If you would again convey my enormous respect to the way your father and indeed your mother have behaved outside the court. And I must say, as you rightly point out, James, all the families as well. I will leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. James O'Malley Kumar is the brother of Grace.